In this lesson, we're going to install Windows Server 2012, but this time to a VHD file instead of to the native hard drive. I have already booted to my CD. I do the same options as previously related to selecting my languages. I select Install Now as before. I'm going to get all of the same options, but this time I'm actually going to open a command prompt window, which is going to allow me to perform some disk partitioning commands. So I'm pressing the Shift F10 key. So notice it's now opened me a command prompt so I can enter various configuration options. Now the first thing I need to do in here, I'm going to go into Disk Partitioning tool and I'm going to list my disks. I'm going to select that first disk and I'm going to clean it. Now I still need to create that initial system partition for that boot code. So I'm going to create a partition that is primary of size 350 megs, which is the default what Windows Server 2012 installation process would normally do. I'm going to format that as NTFS. I'm going to label it System, and I'll perform a quick format. We're then going to make that the active partitions. This is what the machine will actually boot from. Now I'm going to create another partition using the rest of the drive, which will actually be the boot volume, or you could even almost label this data now, because we're not actually going to boot from this volume, we're going to boot from a VHD we create on this volume. So I'm going to create another partition of type primary. I'm going to format it as NTFS, but this time I'm actually just going to label it, for example, data, just for consistency. And then I'll assign it the letter C. Now I'm going to create a virtual hard disk. So I'm actually going to create a file on my C drive, and I'll call it Win2012 boot.vhd. I'll give it a maximum size. So I'm going to say 40 gigabytes, and I'm going to create it of type expandable. So this means initially it will create a very small file, and then as data is written to it, it will grow and grow. I'm going to select that new VDisk that I just created. I'm going to attach it to my system. I'm then going to create a partition on that VDisk that I've just created. So I'm now creating this partition in that virtual hard disk. Then I'm going to format it once again with the NTFS file system. And I'm going to label it boot, because this is what I'm actually going to boot from. And now I can list my volumes. And you can see I have my boot drive there available of 40 gig that I have created. So now I can exit this partition utility and exit this command prompt window I opened. Now I can proceed with my installation. So once again, I can select the operating system I wish to install, accept the EULA, the end user license, do a custom installation. But notice now I have an extra partition. I created my system partition, I have that data drive, and then there is my VHD. Now it's going to show me an error, and it always shows this. It showed this in Windows Server 2008 R2 as well. You can ignore it. Click Next. Windows is now being installed to that VHD file, and this concludes the Boot to VHD lesson.